Okay, I think we finally... I finally got everything pretty well set up at this point. But what's going on, guys? It is Cooper88, also known as Steve, and welcome to Assassin's Creed Origins, or more specifically, welcome to Discovery Mode in Assassin's Creed Origins. This is actually a feature that I've been kind of tinkering around with. If you guys have never played Assassin's Creed Origins, very extremely fun game, it's definitely a good step in the right direction, at least in my opinion, because I liked games like Black Flag, I like Syndicate, I like these kinds of more RPG-esque kind of elements to Assassin's Creed than kind of what they tried to do in different games. And also, I always feel like Assassin's Creed never should have like started implementing multiplayer related stuff like what they try to do with Brotherhood and Revelations and Black Flag and such. I feel like those should have been kept out of there, or at least like been made like an optional thing, as opposed to just being made to feel like it's something that needs to be done. And I'm glad that they went back to single player. I'm glad that they went back to, I guess you could say, the core roots or basics of what they originally were going to do with Assassin's Creed, which is focusing on more the historical aspects. Not that they haven't, but they never emphasized until like Syndicate or so, like this idea of, what's the word I'm looking for? The idea and scope of what these games should be. And I like with Origins that they made what they call Discovery Mode, which it's a guided tour mode. And so let me zoom out here. So I have essentially the entire map of Assassin's Creed Origins, which takes place in ancient Egypt. And it's all the different areas, and of course, yes, we'll visit the Pyramids of Giza, guys. Don't worry, I'll get to the Pyramids of Giza, and I'll show you guys how Ubisoft created the Sphinx and all that stuff in a second. And I mean, it's a huge world. Like, it's ridiculously huge, and what we're playing, as I said, is called Discovery Mode. The coffee hasn't quite kicked in, so I'm going to be stuttering and stammering for a bit. This is basically what's called Discovery Mode, which they compiled 4 years worth of research, guys. 4 years. And what made this very interesting was, rather than doing behind-the-scenes documentaries like they did with a lot of their other Assassin's Creed games, they decided to make an educational module, which is what this is. And what they didn't realize was not only people that loved history would utilize this, but that teachers and schools would take notice of this. And it ended up actually blowing up, guys, and becoming a feature that now is going to be put in Odyssey and a lot of games going forward with Assassin's Creed. The only shame that I have is that they couldn't do it with Syndicate, and they couldn't do it with, Unity and some of the... I feel like this would have benefited the older Assassin's Creed games. Like, you don't have to worry about facing, the Borgia and all that stuff, and you could go around, like Assassin's Creed 2's world. I feel like that would have been, like, something fun. But I also understand why they only wanted to implement it into this game. But yeah, you have, and of course you can actually play as different characters within Discovery Mode. So you can play as, of course, Bayek of Siwa, which is the main protagonist here. Aya of Alexandria. So it's like Bayek of Siwa, Aya of Alexandria, which is his wife. You can run around this mode as Julius Caesar, Cleopatra. You can play as Desmond Miles' father, Miles. Layla Hassan. There's that. It's very interesting. It is very, very interesting. Like, I'm just going through this to give you guys a basic idea of how so it's like this is just, and also a lot of this is kind of a slight spoiler for those that have never played Assassin's Creed. You know, it's essentially like you're seeing Bayek in many different forms. So it's interesting. It's a very interesting look. And of course we got Passport, which shows all the different key locations, like different things that you can go through as far as like the history lessons, a timeline thing. Like they did a pretty good job. And I think we'll run a very short module. And we'll look at the different building techniques. I just want to show you guys like how cool this is, because and this is conflict free, combat free. You don't gotta worry about being desynchronized. You don't gotta worry about desynchronizing. You don't have to worry. You don't got to worry about desynchronization. You don't have to worry about combat. This is a combat-free, just roam the world as you want at your leisure. Game mode. And I relatively like this. And I think it's a very fun, very cool idea that gets you into the world. So with that being said, guys, I'll probably do 1 or 2 lessons. I don't want to make a super long video, but I wanted to do something fun. Not only to close out the new year, but I wanted to do something that was semi-fun. Because I've been playing Assassin's Creed a lot, and I thought, I want to share this cool thing with you guys. And, it might make me feel a little bit better because the holidays have not been kind to me, and I've just kind of been a hermit and just stayed recluse. Unfortunately, my year is not ending on the best of notes, which doubly, upsets me, but I'm not surprised. I feel like my luck is never always going to go my way. But that's not to say that I haven't had a good year, but I'll get into that at the end of the video. Let's do 1 or 2 lessons. Let's learn some stuff about Egypt.
Welcome to Building Ancient Egypt. Constructed with bricks made of mud, most ancient Egyptian buildings were not permanent. Only religious temples and funerary monuments were meant to stand the ravages of time. For these very important structures, Egyptians used limestone, sandstone, and harder materials, such as granite, quartzite, and travertine. These heavy stone blocks were so prized that they were often transported from quarries located hundreds of kilometers away.
Yeah, and that's another cool thing. The narrators in this game are actual Egyptologists. So Ubisoft worked with the Egyptian Museum. A lot of the a lot of Egyptologists that studied, the Library of Alexandria and all that stuff, and, all the stuff that was within the area, all of them with different expertise. And it's just interesting because they'll have, like, actual artifacts that have been discovered, drawings like this, and it's just very interesting, like how in-depth a lot of these things are. Because, there's a lot of stuff about Egypt I didn't even know that I've learned through playing in this mode. And it's actually really cool. But let's continue.
Limestone was common and easy to extract from quarries on the east bank of the Nile. This particular limestone had marine fossils in it, however, preventing it from being easily decorated and polished. Used as the main building material, the structure would then be finished with a finer limestone that was polished smooth and decorated as needed. Limestone was used for the building of the first pyramids and for most of the religious buildings of the Old and Middle Kingdoms. Ancient Egyptians preferred to use sedimentary rock beds, or layers like sandstone and limestone, because they were often easier to extract. The common method used to extract stone was the open pit quarry. Stonecutters would find quality stone, shape, and dig it out on site. Open pit quarries enabled many workers to work simultaneously on many blocks, which allowed for better productivity.
Now see, that's interesting. So what they're basically telling us is that, because the way that this looks, this is a stonemason's chisel. What they would do, obviously, this was to chisel it out. But what they would do is they would basically find rocks that were, what they're basically saying is that they would find rocks that are protruding, and they would basically slowly start niching and carving them out, piece by piece. Basically they were making a circle out of whatever, quality stone they could get. That way the wall didn't crumble. You'd have multiple people basically digging in and out. They were basically hollowing it out. And even for that time period, that's a very smart move, because you never know, seismic shift and everything. So that's kind of interesting.
Workers would draw a large grid directly on the stone's surface, taking care to leave a space between the blocks. This allowed them to isolate the different blocks and create a trench that would make the extraction easier. Stoneworkers used iron chisels for hard rock and bronze or copper tools for softer rocks such as limestone. Removing material between each block created a trench line. In some quarries, that trench was wide enough to accommodate a worker, who would then cut the block entirely on site. For harder rocks like granite, workers cut a series of holes and hammered wooden wedges into them. They then soaked the wood until it swelled and caused the rock to split.
Now that's actually pretty ingenious. I'm not even joking or being sarcastic. That's actually a really good advanced technique for rock removal. Like I said, I'm learning stuff that I didn't even think I knew about ancient Egypt's history. I knew that, well, to be fair, the cutting technique for stone and for stone chiseling, I knew they chiseled stone and transported it and built those wedges, but I didn't realize that it was that deeply intricate. So that's actually really ingenious. So they would rope pulley and sled these things off and just basically do them one at a time. Oh, we're gonna steal a chariot at some point.
The gallery extraction technique was used when the desired rock was buried under layers of rubble. This method was often necessary in order to find the whiter and finer limestone required for a smoother finish. The first step was for the stoneworkers to create an access pit that would allow them to reach the desired wall of stone. Once a wall of quality stone was exposed, workers could then cut out smaller blocks. This pit required a descending platform. Designed like a stairway, it allowed them to free multiple galleries of blocks.
They took the chariot. I should have, like, tried to ride around. Yeah, in this game you can ride war chariots, you can have horses, camels, etc. Okay, so let's go over here.
To cut the stone, they created a longitudinal curve, or slit, and then cut the rock at a 90-degree angle. The lower side was determined along the geological layers or by using a horizontal cut. Wooden wedges were inserted in the rock and hammered in. Shock waves were then generated using hammers, fracturing the blocks at the seam.
Huh. So they would basically put wedges in there and then they just keep tapping or taking like a giant mallet hammer and just basically smacking the bedrock until the vibrations basically shook the rock loose. I'm not gonna lie, the ancient Egyptians had a lot of interesting but not completely flawed ideas for brick building and architecture.
To maintain the stability of these mining pits over the course of quarrying, workers would leave support sections of unexcavated rock.
Makes sense. Like I was saying, you don't know with seismic shift, but that kind of makes sense. I mean, if you're gonna mine and hollow a place out, you might as well get the support pillars.
In every quarry, dedicated shrines were established to offer protection for the workers. In particular, Serket, the scorpion goddess, was considered a very powerful deity among quarry workers. Every mine and quarry of ancient Egypt included a scorpion charmer, who was said to use magical powers to ward off the dangerous insects and keep the workers safe.
Welcome to Workers and Transport. Whether workers were employed for the pyramid construction or at the quarries, the government supplied food and housing. Workers for the pyramids and royal necropolises were housed in more permanent villages, such as the famous Deir el-Medina. Quarry workers had more temporary lodgings. All skill levels were needed and utilized, from basic work hands to prepare the gypsum, to brickmakers and sand carriers, to skilled stonemasons to shape the blocks.
I'm sitting here quietly, guys. And this is something cool that I think you guys would like too. Like, there's different spots right here, and when you go up to them, you can basically interact. Like, different areas to interact at, and so, like, you can basically interact with the world more by... So, like, we're sitting in front of a campfire with food and stuff, and... And, of course, you know, we can sit by a campfire, eat food, so, like, you literally, you know, or sleep... There we go.
Skilled architects and engineers were employed year-round, while support labor were often farmers who worked on the quarries or construction during the Nile's flood season. The basic laborers were hardworking and versatile. Many may have been farmers who joined the construction during the off-season. Hieroglyphs found in the work villages listed assigned job titles.
So yeah, you can sit and interact with the world, which I find very interesting. So like, you can just sit, enjoy the fire, all that stuff, and I'm curious if this... See, like, this is a cool feature for... So we can interact with the world, and we can have these little, like, you know, spots that let us interact with the world around us. And of course, I'm trying to remember. I think Sobek is the Egyptian crocodile god. So we're doing an offering prayer / tribute to Sobek. So it's like, I like these little cool interactive spots that, like, really, you know, that actually really work. And look at this. I mean, this is ingenious. This is basically... It's basically a mining basin. Are you not gonna move? He's not gonna move. But yeah, you can interact with different things in this time period. I mean, this is basically like a deep-seated pulley. You know, this is meant to basically draw out different minerals and stuff from the water, you know, like basically like early, you know, the early, like, I guess you could call it, you know, miner 69er type stuff. Like, just stuff like that is cool to me. That they didn't have to implement into the game, but that they wanted it to feel more interactive and more like, you know, this is, you know, something you can witness and be a part of. And it makes the game a little bit more interactive in this mode. And I rather enjoy that. So let's continue.
Archaeological research shows that no food was stored or prepared on site, but instead workers received abundant rations of bread, beer, and meat. These rations were taken care of by an administration outside the village. Medical treatment was also available for those who were injured.
Huh. See, like, it's just little things. Oh, hang on.
While some quarries were close to the Nile, others were located across the desert and required long expeditions. These expeditions were sanctioned by the state. They involved complex logistics and required many participants. Transporting a block by land meant that workers had to overcome the weight and friction of the load. To solve this, they first dug a track in the ground. This path was sometimes reinforced with rails upon which a sled, used to ferry the blocks, would be pulled.
I took the spot. But yeah, it's like you get to interact with the world, which is pretty cool.
Whenever possible, blocks were toppled from a higher elevation onto the sled. Workers then poured water onto the clay at the front of the sled, creating a slick surface to more easily move the load. It wasn't until the New Kingdom that animals were used to tow the burden.
It's a very fascinating, like, it's kind of very fascinating to see, like, how, because, like, it kind of makes sense, because when you have a lot of wet ground like that, you definitely want to make sure that you're, like, letting loose the slack as opposed to, like, keeping it going.
During flood season, the Nile was at its largest and deepest, which allowed the transportation of the heaviest and biggest loads. Quarries close to the river had troughs dug out to deliver the stones to the shoreline. Harbors and wharfs situated at the river's edge allowed the transfer of materials and supplies. Harbor warehouses accommodated additional stocks of stone so that they were available for the winter sailing season. The Uwadi el-Jarf papyri detail a limestone load intended for the Khufu pyramid that weighed in at 70 to 80 tons, or 30 blocks. One papyrus is a fragment from a foreman's notes taken while working on the Great Pyramid. It details the transportation of limestone blocks from the Tura quarries to the construction site of the pyramid. The other papyri are shipping logs containing archives of the sailors assigned to sail the Red Sea and the Nile.
70 to 80 tons. I am in a little bit of disbelief after hearing that set of info. I'm like, Good grief. So they were carrying blocks that were probably about as big or like a sizable chunk of, say, like the Empire State Building or something. Like, these are massive stones. That is ridiculous.
Stone cargo generally weighed 15 tons per boat, amounting to roughly 6 or 7 blocks per trip. For heavier loads such as obelisks, monolithic pillars, or gigantic statues, larger boats were used. These transports are the ones typically showcased on temple walls.
Makes sense. That's a big-ass boat.
River transportation was the most efficient way to ferry stone blocks between the quarry and the construction site. Blocks were transported by flotillas of several types of boats. The most detailed illustration of transport by river is a relief of Queen Hatshepsut's barge with an accompanying flotilla.
So they naturally had a lot of ships come through the area and basically transport a lot of these blocks to like be, you know, carved into statues, obelisks, some of them, the heaviest of them, as they just told us, being used when they were building the Great Pyramids. And that's kind of interesting to me, because I never looked at Egyptian architecture like that. I always knew that, okay, you know, they used, you know, sand blocks and clay, you know, clay brick and mortar tactics, but it didn't dawn on me that, you know, in doing that, they also had to try and find a way to tackle these things, you know, to tackle a lot of these issues that they had in getting these things there. So essentially they could only take the boats when the Nile was like, you know, flooded, basically, when it was at, you know, high tide, so to speak. And that's when they would do their heaviest, you know, like stone block shipping. That's interesting. Well, guys, as I said, I didn't want to like do too long a video, but I wanted to do at least you know, one or two historical lessons, just kind of show you guys how interesting Discovery Mode is here in Assassin's Creed Origins. They're hopefully towards the end of January, maybe beginning of February, they're thinking about trying to implement Discovery Mode for Odyssey, so we can explore ancient Greece, possibly next. But I just want to wish you guys a Happy New Year. Hope y'all enjoy tomorrow, even if you work. Hopefully you get New Year's Day off. I'll have New Year's Day off, and I'll be happy about that. But guys, I can't wait. You know, I can't wait for the new year to get here. I'm hoping it won't be too awful ridiculous. And guys, I'm hoping that next year will be, I mean, obviously I won't say I had a bad year. I didn't have a bad year. You know, going to New Orleans for WWE WrestleMania and a lot of the stuff that happened after that in retrospect, it was just, a lot of it was stuff that was bad timing, a lot of it was stuff that maybe needed to happen, but it still is no less frustrating and it's still no less annoying. And I'm hoping next year, going forward, that a lot of bad things don't happen. It seems like towards the end of this year, not only myself, but my mother are starting to deal with a lot of new issues that are cropping up. You know, I told her very embitterly, but also sarcastically, that it seems like every time she and I get positive momentum going, something has to happen to kick us down. And I'm getting fed up with it, among a lot of other things. The worst being, that I'm just in a very unhappy place going into the new year, and it's not necessarily my fault. It's a lot of unforeseen circumstances personally, but it's also just, some things have been happening at work lately. It's not even so much like workplace drama, so much as it is just, we've been having a lot of issues with customers and a lot of other people lately. And there's also talk that, they're trying to basically cut a lot of people's hours going into the new year, a lot of workers' hours, even full-time people, just to try to make budget cuts. Of course, that, you guys know how, like, a lot of the water cooler talk is, in the workplace. A lot of it is hearsay, but, I don't know. I'm in a place, especially after Thanksgiving and going through Christmas and going to the beginning of this year, where it's like, I'm very stoic, a lot more than I usually am. Like, guys, I'm up till 1, 2, even sometimes 3 in the morning, because I'm not only overtired, but I'm just like, I go to bed stressed, and then I don't sleep well throughout the night. Even today, I will openly and honestly admit I'm very haggard. I kind of want to be a hermit. I didn't want to be bothered, but I thought, it's not fair to you guys, and it's not fair to anybody that follows me on Twitch, and it's not fair to anybody who follows me on social media and stuff, period. And a lot of it is burnout too. It's genuine burnout, and it's not even you guys' fault, but just all the stuff I wanted to stream on Twitch and do, all the stuff that I wanted to get back into doing here for YouTube, I got to put off a little bit longer. And that irritates me more, because I feel like I keep saying that I'm going to do stuff, and then I don't do it. And thus, that makes people, kind of turned off towards me. But at the same time, I think a lot of you guys that truly get it and understand it know that, it's not fun to force yourself to stream or make videos if you're not feeling it, for one, and two, if you're mentally and emotionally not in a good place, if you're in a very angry place, if you're in a very sad place, etc. or so forth, you don't want to do that to yourself. And I'm not going to do that to myself. I feel bad for the people that follow me on Twitch, because I now am going to take I was originally going to start working on Spyro 3. And I'm now going to have to hold off streaming the third Spyro game for them, which, sucks. And it sucks for you guys, on the YouTube side, because this is now like the second video that I've done. And I'm basically telling you guys, yeah, it's like I wanted to not punish you guys and put this video out here, but let's be honest, low-key, it kind of feels like I'm just kind of, booting everybody that's following me here through YouTube on the side. You know what I mean? I don't know. I'm stuck in my own head, guys, and I know I shouldn't be, but I think it's an age thing too. I think as I get older, I'm just realizing that I need to take care of myself. And that doesn't mean that I'm going to stop. No, I'm going to try to find cool stuff like this to do. Or like, little fun indie games in between, just so that way it's not only staying relevant, but it's also like letting you guys know that, hey, I am trying to get content out here. It's just going to be once in a blue moon, and it's just going to be, like me doing it whenever I feel confident to do it and feel like it won't come off as me just eventually, you know, like venting and stuff like that, like what I'm doing now, but I'm venting for all the right reasons. I'm just letting you guys know that I'm not in a very good headspace, and to try and be patient with me and try to work with me, because it's not always going to be a fun time with me. It's not. I feel really bad because, you know, on one hand, I'm burnt out. Like, just in general. Like, I'm not sleeping well. You know, I'm stressed out. You know, going into the new year on a bad note. You know, it's a lot of stuff that bothers me. But I also know with a sense of maturity that it's not my fault. It's completely out of my control. I have no control over it whatsoever. But it just bothers me. So my advice in closing is that I hope that you guys not only enjoyed this, but also, guys, please be kind. Please try to be kind to each other in the new year. Try to be supportive of one another. You know, tell the family members that you're close to that you love them. You know, maybe hug them. But just try to be positive. And that's the biggest thing with me that I'm having trouble with, but that I'm trying to work on, is being a little more positive and trying to ignore all the negative stuff around me, and trying to learn to delegate and separate a lot of different things that would bother me. But with that being said, guys, I am going to stop the video right here. I hope that you guys enjoyed a little bit of Assassin's Creed Origins Discovery Mode. Let me know if you guys want me to do another episode of this. I have no problem doing this. I actually enjoy this because, like, it's fun to not only learn history stuff, but it's like, this is a relaxing mode. You know, no combat, no nothing. You can just ride around and explore the world, you know, at your leisure. It's meant to be a stress reliever. So take care, guys. Have a good one. And as always, I will see you guys in the next one. And as I said, you know, just be kind and try and be a little nicer to each other or to other people, even if they choose not to be. But also don't let yourself be stepped on either. You know, take it with due diligence, guys. But hopefully the next year will be as good for you guys as I'm hoping it will be for me. I'm still looking into some stuff, but I will make those announcements when they come.